Hi all, welcome to the first ever episode of Storytime with Angel, where I read excerpts for authors who are perhaps too shy or don't have the time to read them themselves. Today we have a visit with Rebecca Cohen, who sent me an excerpt from her book Servitude, which is the first book in her Reagalos series. She has the second one out now as well. It's called Idolatry, but we're going to read from the first one today. It's Servitude. I just want to read a little bit about the story itself. So we'll go ahead and do the first paragraph of the blurb here for you guys. This is a fantasy novel. And it says, Lornik Reagalos, future High Lord of the city of Catraman, enjoys his life as a student, even if he has to keep his relationship with Methian Hadral, heir to the throne of Zenitra, a secret. Unfortunately, Lornik isn't just any royal student. He's also the grandson of an infamous magic user named Romanus Reagalos. And his grandfather's wild youth is about to catch up with him. Unknown to anyone else, Romanus saw fit to sign his grandson into the life of a valet, specifically Methian's valet. All right, the excerpt that we're going to read today is a section where Lornik is with his mentor, Kat, and he's trying to work out how to use his magic, which has actually been dormant until he recently connected with the orbs. And the orbs are special crystals that lie in the caverns underneath the city of Catraman. All right, so our excerpt from Servitude by Rebecca Cohen. Ever since he'd connected with the orbs, Lornik's body had been unsettled, as if it were not quite his own. When he closed his eyes, he could hear his powers begging him to release them into the world, telling him to use his gift and let them show him just how impressive he could be. He focused his whole attention on Kat. The magician waved a hand over the black lump in his hand and muttered, "Oblit." Lornik's eyes widened as he saw the coal elongate and then expand, pulling apart the tetrahedral lattice of carbon atoms as it moved. It was amazing. He could hear the atomic bonds break. The spaces between the atoms increased, and now the lump of coal was merely a collection of unlinked particles that, with a blink of an eye, scattered. Wow. Kat looked at Lornik with amusement. "Are you ready for me to show you the next thing, or do you want some more time?" he asked. "Next," Lornik replied hungrily, almost surprising himself with his eagerness. Kat picked up a second piece and squeezed it tightly in his fist. Transforma. To Lornik, the coal didn't expand or really change in shape. Instead, the individual molecules shuddered, and the bonds between each atom broke and regrouped almost instantaneously. As Kat's hand uncurled, Lornik could see the piece of coal was no longer a black lump, but opalescent. "An uncut diamond," Lornik whispered in awe. He looked up and grinned at Kat. "Now I know why I never see a poor mage. Unfortunately, this isn't a permanent transfiguration. My magic doesn't work that way." "It's family magic, isn't it? Do you have a specialty?" asked Lornik excitedly. "My family has a huge amount of variation, therefore so does my magic," said Kat, setting the diamond down on the table. "There's no one thing I excel at particularly, but then again, I can do a bit of everything. The ultimate all-rounder. Something like that. Now let's see if we can coax you into doing something." Kat picked up a third piece of coal and placed it in Lornik's left hand. "You shouldn't need the hand-waving and the words. That's all bollocks, really. But it's how I learned, and how I direct my magic. Just try concentrating really hard on what you want to achieve and see what happens." Lornik fixed the lump with an intense stare and channeled his concentration. There was a tingle in his fingers. The tingling continued, and Lornik focused as hard as he could. Droplets of sweat clustered on his brow as the harsh edges of the coal began to cut into his palm. Kat's hand gently rested upon his own. "Enough." Lornik fought hard to keep the disappointment from his face when Kat removed the coal and muttered a spell to clean and mend his hand. "What did you feel?" asked Kat. "A prickle in the tips of my fingers, but I couldn't get it to do anything," Lornik said, frustrated. "It's a good start. You can't expect to do much." Kat saw the disillusion creep into Lornik's face. "Lornik, it takes hours of practice to distort the laws of physics. I think you should take this with you." Cat picked up a piece of coal and threw it to Lornick. And practice. Give it a week, and then come back. Lornick stood to leave, but Cat stopped him. One last thing. Yes? Have you tried to investigate the crest since you connected? Lornick shook his head. I have no idea what you even mean by that. Take off your jacket and roll your shirt sleeve up far enough to expose the crest. Lornick obeyed and rolled the soft fabric up his arm to reveal his marked bicep. Good, said Cat. Now place your hand over it, take a deep breath, and just relax. I really don't think this'll work. I've not asked you to think. Just do it. Although Lornick wasn't convinced about Cat's teaching technique, and he was running out of time to get to college, he did as he was told. As his fingers brushed his flesh, a bolt of static shot through his body, creating a circuit of power racing up his arm, across his shoulders, and then back down into his fingertips. The sensation was electrifying, rampaging through his body like something alive and untamed. So they are willing to cooperate, Lornick, said Cat. They just might take some coaxing to do as they're told. Cooperation wasn't the word Lornick would have used to describe it. His powers darted wildly through his body, snaking and writhing, causing pleasure and exhilaration. They explored the alien marking on his arm, darting and diving in and out of the spell weave. The room was fading out of focus, and his mind's eye began to picture the crest. The body of the crest was still in one piece, but woven through it were 5 intertwined ribbons, each of a different color. They moved, tangling and untangling themselves to create a knot of strands, a convoluted ball of red, blue, purple, green, and yellow strings. A strong hand closed around his wrist and pulled his hand violently away from the crest. The vision dissipated slowly, morphing into Cat's face. Are you with me? It was... Cat grabbed his shoulders and shook him roughly. Better? Lornick phased back into reality. Yeah, thanks. And? It was a jumble of 5 colors, said Lornick, still a little dazed. 5, are you sure? Of course I am. Cat leaned forward and placed a hand over the crest. You're right. Lornick pulled his arm away. What? When I first examined you, I thought there were only 3 mages involved in the spell's casting, but Liam Hadrell was determined not to let the Reagalis get away with anything. Lornick looked puzzled. Cat, I still don't know what you're talking about. Each of those pretty colored strands is the signature of a mage whose magic left it there. It is a form of identification. No 2 mages have the same color, even if the difference is minor. I thought it was bad enough seeing the red, blue, and green, but the addition of the purple and yellow is even more of a problem. Cat sounded irritated, his hands gesticulating wildly. Is it just because there are more, or is it the colors themselves that are the issue? Lornick tried his best to keep his voice calm, but Cat's reactions unnerved him more than the news of the complexity of the spell. Bits of both. How much do you know of magic theory? Probably as much as you do about paradimensional analysis. Cat rubbed at his chin. I'll stick to the basics then. Thousands of years ago, there were 3 main aspects of magic, and these were reflected by 3 colors of various shades. Those with a natural affinity for nature and the land had a yellow signature, and likewise those of significant strength and potent fertility had a red one. The final branch, the blue lot, were healers and had the ability to ward off bad spirits. As the number of generations increased, the types of magic mingled to give the different colors. The problem is, to remove the crest, we'll need to remove each of those signatures, and while I was confident we might remove 3, 5 will take longer, especially if 2 of them were well hidden enough for me not to spot them in the first place. I see, said Lornick stoically. And because each is different, they'll need a different method of removal? Cat shrugged. Only a slight variation is required, but it is time-consuming nonetheless. Fantastic, said Lornick, unimpressed. Look, I have to go. I've got to get to college to see the dean. Take this. Cat handed him a thin booklet that had been sitting on the table. It's just a meditation guide. I want you to read it and try some of the exercises to help you focus your powers. And there we have our excerpt from Servitude. It sounds like a really interesting world that Rebecca's built for us. If you take a look down at the blog, we'll have the beautiful cover for Servitude. Both of the covers, Servitude and Idolatry, are just gorgeous if you want to take a look at them. These are from Dream Spinner Press, available at Dream Spinner, of course, and all of the usual outlets. We will be back on Thursday with an excerpt from Freddie McKay. Thanks for listening.